Hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar. The title is Opportunities in Omnichannel: 3 Ways to Increase Customer Engagement Through Omnichannel Personalization. A quick background on me and why I'm speaking here. My name is Lucas Weber, and I am the Product Marketing Manager at a company called Nosto, the company hosting this webinar. And Nosto specializes in personalization. So we personalize the product recommendations, content, anything really shown to shoppers through the shopping journey. So we personalize those experiences, both to segments and to individual customers. And it's very important and powerful, of course, in omnichannel, which is why we're very excited about this topic. The agenda is starting with defining the modern customer journey. So there I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, discussing omnichannel, what that means versus multi-channel and so forth, and make sure we all have the same basis. Then we're going to talk about the 3 steps to increasing customer engagement. And this is where we get into the really fun stuff, the real inspirational stuff. And there I'm going to want you to use your imagination and think about how this can apply to you, because of course, every situation, every company is different, and no one knows your employees or your colleagues or your customers better than you do. So I will outline these 3 steps that we have found to be extremely helpful in moving into the omnichannel realm and personalizing that experience. But of course, it is up to you to really think about how you can do that. And then we're going to talk about next steps in omnichannel personalization, and there I have a little some Nosto news I would like to share with you. It's exciting. And then we'll have a questions and answer at the end. So the very first part, defining the modern customer journey. I have a couple stats here I wanted to start with, so let's just go through these one by one. The first one is 90% of consumers said that they expect the customer experience to be consistent across channels and devices. So this is a pretty big number, right? 90%. So basically, regardless of what touch point they're interacting with, be it in store, in a physical store, or on site, on your web store, or if they're viewing ads on Facebook or whatever it is, whatever platform, they want that experience to be the same, right? They want to have a good experience across all of the touch points. That's really crucial, and of course, that's basically defining omnichannel. The second quote here, 71% of shoppers who use smartphones for research in-store say that it's become an important part of the experience. This I can testify to personally. Whenever I go in-store somewhere, which isn't that often, I'm not a big shopper, but whenever I do go in-store, I definitely pull out my smartphone and I just check online for other options, better prices or competing stores, or do they have different models or colors online, or shapes, sizes, whatever it is, whatever product you're looking at. And I think this is also important here, because you're basically mixing touch points at that point. You have someone on their phone and in your store. So there's 2 touch points right there at the same time. And so of course, if you can unify that somehow, standardize that, that's really important, really powerful. And the third stat here, 1 in 3 omnichannel shoppers have a 30% higher lifetime value than those who shop using only one channel. So right there, if you are into omnichannel, if you already have that set up, that's great. And I'm sure then you've seen the benefits that it brings. We can see here 30% of your omnichannel customers have a higher lifetime value, which of course is just driving more conversions, more sales to you in the long run. So it is definitely worth setting up the omnichannel and moving away from the basic multi-channel approach. So let's look at this omnichannel environment here. Now this is just an example that we made for this presentation, but I think it really demonstrates how omnichannel can be approached by the shoppers in different ways. You see here different touch points. So we have a physical store, we have video, we have call center, mobile app, email, online store, print ads, etc. Now let's look at 2 examples of how different customers might go through this journey. The first one starts at your physical store, and maybe they buy some shoes there. Then they go on their phone and they see something on social media. So maybe Instagram or Facebook or something is showing them a pop-up, or a product recommendation and saying, hey, check this out. And then they go online and they buy a t-shirt. So there you have two, or actually, sorry, you have 3 different touch points, and maybe they have 2 different conversions there. Now, if we look at another customer, let's start also in the physical store. So maybe there they purchase a shirt or look at a shirt, then they see a banner ad later online, then maybe they get an email, which is unrelated to the banner ad, but still it's a touch point, and then they go on their mobile app. So maybe you as the retailer have provided a native mobile app and they go into there and then maybe they make a purchase. So they buy shoes to match the shirt that they bought in store. It's just another example, but here you see it was 2 completely different paths. They both started in the same place, but they ended up in different places. And it's are those touch points all unified? Are they all? Is it a real omni-channel experience? That's the question we're putting forth here. And then how do you get to that? All right. So if we think about those dots, those circles we just saw as those retail dots, as those touch points, how can you connect them? First of all, assess your brand needs to improve customer experience. Like I said in the agenda slide, think about your specific situation as a retailer. Do you have all of the touch points in place? Do you need to add another? Have you been procrastinating looking at that? I mean, what's your specific situation? What do you need to do to get to that point? Now, I think this next bullet point is my favorite here because I'll tell you a little anecdote. So it says, set unified targets for your online and offline efforts. Now, the reason this is there is because I was at a congress in London last year, and I just ended up chatting with some guy on the floor or whatever, and he more or less said that he ran e-commerce at his company, and there was a woman in his company who ran the in-store, the physical locations, and they were both doing extremely well. The problem with them is that they were not working together, and in his words, he actually said, "We have an internal war." And of course, that's a little dramatic, but you get the point that they were not working together. They weren't sharing data, and it was kind of who can sell more. And of course, that's not an ideal situation for the company, and it's not an ideal situation for the shoppers or the customers because they're not getting that data shared between those 2 retail dots or those touch points. So basically, if you set unified targets, you can try to align your different business units and make sure everyone's striving for the same thing. And then on top of those first 2 bullet points, agree on priorities and a realistic timeline. So how are you going to get there, right? So you've assessed your brand needs. You look at where maybe there's some gaps in the customer experience. You set the unified targets, and then how do you prioritize? What steps do you need to make? What's the very first step and the second step and so forth? And then implement the right tech stack. So this kind of builds on what I've been saying in the sense that maybe you need to bring on some more software. How do you connect the data between those different touch points, between the offline and the online? What software programs do you need? And then which are the best in that domain to take and adopt into your system? So this is really, of course, kind of at the basis here of omnichannel, getting it all connected. So now, let's talk about the 3 steps to increasing customer engagement. And again, please think about this from your point of view, and we are always very open to ideas. So if after this webinar, if you have questions, of course, you can ask in the Q&A, or then you can just reach out to us and say, is this feasible, or have you heard of this idea before? We have a team of experts who have been doing e-commerce and helping people through this experience for years. So definitely, we are very happy to hear your ideas and feed off of your inspiration. Okay, the first step, we call it defense. So increasing customer engagement through defense. So let's take a look at that. This is Carol, and Carol has now in this scenario a specific shopping journey. So she visits an online store, okay, and she views a pair of jeans there. Then she goes to the physical store nearby where she lives, and she tries on the jeans, she likes them, and she buys them. Then later, maybe a week later, maybe a day later, whatever it is, she gets an advertisement about those jeans saying you might be interested in these. Now, why does that happen? It's because the data isn't shared, right? So those touch points aren't speaking to each other. So if she bought the jeans in store, but that transactional data isn't translated into the digital world, then she's going to get this advertisement about jeans because the last digital interaction she had was that very first step you see there, visiting the online store and viewing the jeans. And that's just not a good experience for her. It's completely irrelevant and kind of offensive. I already bought these jeans. Why are you telling me that I might be interested in them? It just pushes people away, right? So you want to defend against that scenario. So if we look at this other example, this is just something that one of our designers had noticed and we thought was really, really quite funny. Our designer had booked a hotel online and chosen a specific date, and time and everything, booked it, and then received an email, which you can see here on the left, where it says, hey, you might be interested in other hotels for the same date and time, and there's this big push there, only 5 rooms left, in high demand, and so forth. But this is, as you can see on the right here, an inefficient use of budget, right? So they're pushing these notifications, emails, whatever, social media ads. They're spending time and money and resources on pushing this out when it's completely irrelevant. And it, like I said before, it's a poor customer experience. And this is what you want to defend against. And this is the very first step, because if you can defend against this poor customer experience, then your customers will have a better experience. And of course, the next step is actually getting into how to do that. But if you can avoid this, that's a very important thing, just to look at how your marketing is structured. How do you handle these different scenarios? Try to map them out, write out a workflow just with paper and pencil and think about the different touch points and what can you defend against that will avoid this bad situation. As you probably guessed, the second step is offense. So now we want to go on the offense. We don't just want to defend against those bad situations. We want to try to proactively go out there and solve for them. Here's Carol again. Now, Carol visits an online store and views jeans, just like in the last scenario. Then she goes to the physical store and she buys them, just like in the last scenario. Now, if you've done your defense, she's not going to get an ad promoting those jeans, right? So we're safe there. But how do you proactively go out and fix this situation? How can you personalize this customer experience for her on the offense? Let's look at a couple of different ideas that we have seen implemented very well and are very interesting. So one is the in-store kiosks. So here, Carol goes into her physical store to buy the pants, right? Or whatever product it is. And there's a kiosk, basically a tablet just on a little stand. And there, maybe she can identify herself, through a customer loyalty email, something like that. And there, it will personalize that experience and say, okay, it looks like you were shopping these jeans online. We can see your past browsing behavior preferences and so forth. And maybe she already bought the jeans offline in the store, and that data is connected here, depending on the situation. And then it can say, you might also be interested in these shoes or this belt. So she can actually do the interaction herself there and see what the personalization recommendations are. On the other hand, if she doesn't identify herself, which you're probably thinking right now, then we just can use crowd logic. So you can actually say, okay, people who view these jeans usually buy these shoes. So there is some form of personalization there, even if she doesn't identify herself. That we've seen, and that's very interesting. And then loyalty cards. So I mentioned that in the in-store kiosk. This is a really, really powerful one. So if you can incentivize in some way your customers to identify themselves with a loyalty card, probably through discounts, right? So if you take a loyalty card in the first place and then continuously use it when you're in store, then we can identify who you are and what you're buying. And that's super important, because there we can start to connect the transactional data from the physical store with the on-site data. So now we know that you bought these jeans because you've identified yourself with the loyalty card. And now when you go on-site, maybe you go to the web store the next day, now all of the content has changed to reflect what you bought in store. It's not going to show you those jeans or whatever you bought anymore. Now it's going to show you relevant content to the brand that you seem to really like, or the price affinity, or the size of the shirt, or the color, whatever it is, right? Or product recommendations showing the same thing. This is where you get like a lot of power if you can get those loyalty cards to be used. And another implementation we've seen that's really very useful is just simple e-receipts. So the person at the point of sale working there will say, thank you for buying these jeans. If I could get your email, I could send you the e-receipt. If they give the email, there you go. Now you can kind of track that and touch or connect those touch points together. So now after they leave the store, you can email them the e-receipt, but you can also embed some product recommendations in there, or you can, just unify again that data. That's what this is really about. And this is going on the offense here. They're really taking that proactive approach. And the third step, and now this is, if you've mastered defense and you've mastered offense and you're ready, then you can try to be unique and live your brand. And of course, this is going to be absolutely specific to you and your company. This is something that's the whole point, a unique selling proposition, just being unique in general. And we have some good examples here for this that we've seen. So this is one that I think is very inspiring. So if Carol goes to a physical store and there she tries on the jeans and she buys them, what we've seen is a retailer sending a free gift in the mail afterwards, maybe a week later, maybe a month later, whatever it is. And it's just a small little gift, nothing big, and just saying, here, thanks for shopping with us. And then sending an email asking for a review later. So you can really, improve that customer experience, make sure it's personalized to them and also has that warm touch. They really feel like you care about them, which of course you do. They are your customers. And then you can maybe populate some reviews, which are important as well. That's a very interesting one, but again, depending on your situation, think about how you want to approach that. And then there's this one. So this is, we're just gonna give this example straight up here. This is Timberland. What we've seen them doing, they're working with a tech provider to have what they call touch walls. So in their physical stores, if you go in there, they have tablets, and you can pick up a tablet and you can walk around, and they have these touch walls, as you can see in the picture, and you can go up and basically scan these little tags on them, on the different products, and you can see all of the products they have available online. So if the shopper is in the physical store and they don't find something they're looking for, or maybe they want to buy, let's say, again, a pair of jeans, they can go check out the online merchandise. And there it will be able to recommend things to them like, oh, we have also a belt to go with the jeans or shoes, or you can test, different colors or sizes, whatever it is, if they don't have it in that store. So it really is just combining that online and offline world. And that's important. It's powerful. It works very well for them. They have some great case studies if you want to go and check that out on their website, or just Google Timberland touch walls, because then people, they get that interactive experience. And if they're disappointed in store, let's say the pair of shoes they're looking for isn't there, they can still confirm that it's online and that they can get it. So it does lead to a very good customer experience, and that's a really fun one that we've enjoyed watching. So with all of that behind us, what are the next steps in omnichannel personalization? Well, there would be two. So first is the in-store personalization. And here you can see this is about connecting your bricks and mortar transactional data and shopper interactions with your on-site behavioral data and transactional data to offer true omnichannel experiences. So Nosto now has this capability. It's a big thing for us where we can actually be that provider for you to pull the data from your offsite and pull the data from your onsite, connect those retail dots as we talked about, make sure that everything flows seamlessly and your customers do get that omnichannel personalized experience that we saw in the 3 stats at the beginning of this webinar. And here we see again that 1 in 3 omnichannel shoppers stat. So it's very important there. And the second one is mobile app personalization. So I'll just read it out for you. Have your own native mobile app, personalize the shopping experience directly inside the app, including content, product recommendations, pop-ups. So here, if you do have your own native app, that's really great. And you can actually integrate Nosto as well in there. So we can pull product recommendations for the segment, for the crowd logic, for the individual person, and push those directly into the app so they're visible there, which is extremely powerful. I mean, we all know how important mobile shopping is these days. As we saw in that other stat, people are on their phones all the time. Even when they're in store physically looking at the products, they're still checking their phones. And here we also have a list: native apps, progressive web apps, and single page apps. So it's not just limited to native apps, but if you're looking at different types of technology, different ways of implementing this. It's all definitely possible, and this is very, very exciting. All right, and that's basically it. So it's kind of a really fast explanation there on omnichannel and personalization. But I hope those three steps were inspirational to you. We had the defense, the offense, and then being unique. Of course, you can always check out this webinar again on demand if you want to think about that. But if you have any questions now, let's definitely go through that. And on the back of that, if after that, then you can always reach out to us. So thank you.